Welcome to the Creativity, Thinking, and Education podcast with your host, Patricia Rose Upsack. Today we will be continuing our conversation with Dr. Jacob Liberman, who is absolutely remarkable and a pure joy to talk to.
And about education and about creativity is that is our natural state. That is what's underlying everything. You know, we didn't discuss what you were going to ask me.
No.
But, you know, you asked a question, and you assume that the question came from you, and most of the listeners probably assume the same thing. But that question was subtly placed in your field of awareness when you weren't looking, and all of a sudden it came to you, and most people say, oh, I had a great thought. But where was it before you supposedly thought of it? It came to you as a gift. You shared that gift with me, and whatever placed that gift in your awareness, all of a sudden starts to download a response to that gift that you think, oh, that Jacob Liberman, he's really interesting, talks about this stuff. Has nothing to do with Jacob Liberman. I merely get to be a vessel at that moment for this miracle that we call life. I get to experience how what is moving the planets is animating this excitement inside of me right now. I don't know the words that are coming out of my mouth. But I have a feeling that whatever is coming through, which is causing me to feel an incredible sense of excitement and delight right now, hopefully will be contagious and will impact readers, listeners, and they'll say, wow. And that is what spurs our creativity. That's the contagious frequency of wellness that is continually breathing us, pumping our hearts, moving through us without any effort. And when we realize that, and we begin to just settle into that, it moves through us and it touches all of creation. And that creativity that is the excitement that I am experiencing now because of this lovely question that you asked, that creativity triggers that same creative spark within listeners, because I don't know exactly what just came out of me. You could say, oh, that's what we know by heart, but it's not even our own knowing. Right. It's the intelligence of life continually moving through all of us. And when that happens, learning becomes easy, seeing becomes easy, and life, even though all of life has its difficulties built in, it becomes delightful much of the time. It's not so much about becoming enlightened, it's about having a delightful experience, a humbling, delightful experience. So that's a beginning for our conversation.
I think that's a wonderful beginning. Well, as I told you when we were talking before the interview, I have in front of me the only book I've got of yours, which is called Wisdom from an Empty Mind, which I actually got. Your son has signed it. It was at the BEA in New York when I was there, and the first, I have it earmarked all over the place, but the first one that I have, I really decided before I called you, like 30 seconds before, I'd like to have you at least comment on it. It says, what you see is what you get. And it's about, you talk about David Bohm and all matter is frozen light. And you go on and everything. And then, can I read this page, or do you want to talk about it first? Okay, all right.
You can read it.
Okay, I'll read it. What you see is what you get. Physicist David Bohm said all matter is frozen light, meaning that light and life are the same essence in two different states of existence. One is the formless, spiritual light we call God, and the other is the transformed expression of that godliness we call life. So how does light become life? How does formlessness miraculously alchemize into form? Quantum physics states that nothing exists without an observer, and the observer's point of view determines what is observed. In other words, what we see in the mind is what we get out there in the world. We create our experience of life from what we believe is real or unreal, and what we create is no accident. It is our highest intelligence, our godliness, mirroring back to us experiences that will expand our awareness and bring our consciousness to the next level. Many people believe that creation ended with the book of Genesis, but in fact, it is constantly occurring. Creation never ends. It is God's mind field, continually expressing itself as the heavens, earth, sun, moon, stars, and everything else that exists. I so love that, especially the part about creativity is still constantly happening. It's everywhere.
Right. I'm so happy that you read that, because even though that book is 14 years old now.
Oh, it's so good, though.
As you read it, I realized, the truth is timeless.
Mm-hmm.
Truth is timeless. It's not so much our perspective on something or our point of view, but what is it that funnels through us when we are just in this very open state? There are so many pieces of that piece that I would like to comment on.
Okay.
So essentially, as it says in their physicists state, that one's point of view actually creates or materializes the world, the experiences that they have. And basically that's based on some interesting experiments where if you are looking at subatomic particles like electrons or photons and so on, and if you choose to measure them with a machine that measures waves, it will measure waves. If you choose to measure them with a machine that measures particles, it will measure particles. And there was always a question, is light a particle or a wave?
Right.
And they noticed that whatever kind of machine you measured it with, it would measure that or the other. And so they came up with a machine that measured particles and waves, and it measured both simultaneously.
Yeah, that's
so
amazing.
What they gathered from that is however one is looking or measuring something, that is essentially what they're going to experience. Now, that in and of itself is fascinating. Of course, a lot of New Age, the New Age movement took that and said, well, we create our own reality, so if you change the way you're looking at things, then everything changes. And then, of course, the assumption is, well, my mind, my life's experience, you can liken them to a remote control. So we can just change the channel by choosing something different.
Mm-hmm.
But very few people find that they get the parking space whenever they want it. I've never met anyone who gets what they want. Neither have I experienced that. What I've come to see is life doesn't give us what we want. It gives us what we need, because everything is governed by the intelligence of life. And what we need is not always what feels incredible to us. That's why the ancient Chinese said crisis leads to opportunity. So, and if you look at the lives of all the people that pretty much all people agree reached a high state, whether it's Moses or Jesus or the Dalai Lama or Martin Luther King or anyone you want, or Ramana Maharshi, the most enlightened people, if you look at their lives, you discover something very quickly. They all share something in common. Do you know what that is?
Mm-mm. No.
They all had very difficult lives.
Uh-huh.
They all had very difficult lives. None of them had it easy and had life their way. No. What helped to support and form the greatness that we experience in them is the part of them that persevered and were resilient in the presence of life's difficulties. No one feels comfortable when a 10-pound weight falls on their foot, even though we say, well, I'm not in my body, but boy, that foot is swollen and hurts. No one is comfortable
Right.
And when we lose a loved one, or when we lose our money, or when we go to the doctor and unexpectedly get a diagnosis. No one says, oh, I'm just laying back and let go. No one. We all respond to those difficulties in precisely the same way. And so what for me is different, it's not about, so to come back to something we said about, well, if you just choose differently, then everything is different. And of course the assumption is we have free will.
Mm-hmm.
I can choose. How do we come to that? Because we have this little voice inside of what we call the mind, which no one knows what that is anyway. And when things come up that we don't understand or we can't seem to handle easily, we begin this process. We call it thinking, where we try to solve the situation and come up with the answer where we're going to be right and we're going to have success. We're going to get a good grade.
Right.
The question is, first of all, is what we call thinking really thinking, or is it just worrying? And what I've come to realize is thinking doesn't come from us. It comes to us, free of charge, not in the form of thought, but in the form of epiphanies, huge awarenesses. And after we have them, we say, oh, look what I thought of. Because the ego wants ownership.
Right.
But actually, if we look at it, we'll realize it came to us free of charge. So what I have found from my work is almost everything we call thinking is actual worrying. And what is worrying? Worrying is when we encounter something in life that we don't have an answer to, which is pretty much everything.
Pretty much, yeah.
We immediately do this internal process. If it was an external process, we would call it cheating, like looking on someone else's paper to try to get the right answer. But we do it internally, so no one knows that we're rehearsing everything inside in hopes that when we actually do it in real time, we'll look good. We'll look like we have it together. We'll have our PowerPoint really maxed out so the presentation is perfect.
Right.
And that is what all of us do all day long. We go into life rehearsing internally because we're so worried that we want to get it right. And we don't realize that the is right actually right. And so first thing to realize is that worrying, which is what most thought really is, actually causes the breath to collapse and makes it impossible for the answer or the epiphany to come to us free of charge. That's why whenever we're thinking about something, we say, gosh, it's on the tip of my tongue. But it doesn't jump off the tip of my tongue into the awareness until something is able to stop thinking about it, is able to sort of drop into a different place. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we use this expression, we have free will. We have choice because we believe that this process of worry is actually how we choose whether we're going to do A or B.
Uh-huh.
And that has been going on for a very long time, and so much of today's conversation is about making choices. So
That's
the real
true.
question is, do we actually make choices? Do we actually choose? And there's a simple way of actually determining the truth about that.
Oh, I can't wait.
We have very, very high-powered technology today, brain technology,
Uh-huh.
that can read what your brain is doing in real time. They're called functional MRIs. So, for instance, let's imagine that as an experiment, we place you in one of these functional MRIs, and we put a button in your right hand and a button in your left hand,
Mm-hmm.
and then we show you a series of pictures. And let's say those pictures are plates of food. And when you get to the one you want, when you use your free will to choose what you're going to eat on the menu, you can press the button in your right hand or the button in your left hand. So, if in fact we have the power of choice or free will, and let's say you choose that you're going to have the pasta primavera, when you choose the pasta primavera, when would you assume that your brain records what your mind has chosen?
I don't know.
Well, if when I say something, okay,
Mm-hmm.
you hear it,
Right.
and you assume your brain then records what you've heard, or
Right.
around the same
Right.
time.
Right.
Well, about 20-plus years ago, a well-known psychologist named Benjamin Libet was very interested in this issue. And so he took the best technology of the day, which were EEGs, electroencephalographs,
Right.
that were looking at brain rhythms and so on. And he did an experiment like this. Okay, so Benjamin Libet, this well-known psychologist, did this experiment with EEGs, where basically he asked you to choose among several things, and then took a look at when did your brain know what you were going to choose. And what he discovered is that actually a half a second before you chose, the brain already recorded what that choice was.
Oh, you're kidding.
And you probably say, yes, and you probably say, well, a half a second before, that's a
amazing.
very short period of time.
Oh, no, it isn't.
But when you think about the fact that the brain processes 20 million times 20 billion bits of information every second,
Uh-huh.
a half second is extremely significant.
Right.
So, following up on Libet's experiments and discoveries, a well-known team of neuroscientists in Berlin decided to replicate his work, but rather than using EEGs, which were a much earlier technology, they used functional MRIs, which are much more sensitive and much faster. And they replicated it. They replicated the experiments. They did it numerous times. The results of what I'm going to share with you was published and replicated and published in peer-reviewed scientific journals. So this is not somebody's idea.
Right.
This is hard science, what I'm going to share with you.
Okay.
And what they discovered is not a half a second, but 7 to 10 seconds before you make, quote, a choice based on your free will, your brain has already recorded what that choice is. Now
Wow.
that's
amazing.
really fascinating.
It is.
That is really fascinating because you get two very powerful conclusions from that research. One is that there's an aspect of my humanity, of each of our humanities, that knows precisely what we're going to do well in advance of the time we think we're going to do it.
Okay.
However, it also says that there's an aspect of our humanity that sees the invisible. What I said earlier in our discussion, there's an aspect of our humanity that sees how we're going to respond to a situation that hasn't even occurred yet.
Right. Oh,
Now that means, to come back to what you read in the book, that means that we are being guided by the mind of God, that we are being guided by a different aspect of consciousness than we're aware of. So maybe we should take a moment to define what I would call mind of God, or these different types of consciousness.
All right.
When we think of the conscious mind, the mind that chatters and worries and, quote, what we call thinks, that's an aspect of mind that makes little or no choice. Many researchers feel that it doesn't choose anything. It merely helps to implement whatever has come from the unconscious mind. Now, let's talk about the unconscious mind, because when people think of the unconscious, most people say, oh, that's the area of the mind where we have these buried old things that we're out of touch with that are really running our life. No, that's not the unconscious mind.
That's good.
The unconscious mind is that which defines what we call non-local consciousness. The unconscious mind is a field of infinite potential. There is no one there that is seeing. There are no desires there or points of view or any of those things that we identify with the conscious mind. The unconscious mind is from where creation arises, and it arises out of nothingness. Non-local consciousness and non-locality, if you ask the physicists about that, when they look at photons, which are these photons for them are the fundamental energy that underlies everything. And when they try to describe the behavior of photons, even though they use different words, they say these photons behave as if they are omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent. In other words, these photons, which are in fact light, behave in the same way the Bible describes God. Maybe that's why the Bible says God is light. So what I'm sharing is that within our humanity, within the humanity of all, within the makeup, the matrix, if you will, of all humans, of all animals, of all plants, of all planets, of all everything, is consciousness. And it is not individual consciousness that is animating everything. It's consciousness of the whole. It's consciousness of oneness. It's a state when there isn't. It's not a state of competition. It's a state of collaborative cooperation because everything is everything. It's all part of the same thing. So your subject matter is fascinating because creation is always creating. And what we call thinking we need to really look at that and say, is that in fact bringing us to where we want to get to? It's interesting that in the East they say meditate. Allow that to get quiet, and then clarity comes by itself. My experience is that our life is our meditation.
Right.
That everything that comes before us continually is the next thing that we are designed to attend to. Whatever catches your eye next, that is the curriculum of life looking for you. We believe, you should prioritize. But the intelligence of life has already prioritized everything. And so when something enters our awareness, that is the precise moment that it is designed to be taken care of. And so if you were in my home, you'd see that when I get mail, I open it. If it's a bill, I pay it, and I send it out. When I'm cooking, which I do every day, I wash the dishes as I'm cooking. The dishes are never left in the sink.
Right.
And I don't even leave them in the rinse. I wash them, I dry them, I put them away. Why? Because I have come to see in my own life that there's no accident about what's looking for me. And it has become a very deep peace for me that, rather than me looking for peace, I realize that if I just allow life to guide me during the day, which it does effortlessly, I am continually brought to the right place at the right time, and I'm able to complete or do whatever needs to be done.
Oh, that's
and
so
that
beautiful.
That is my current experience. It's been my experience for many years, but now, approaching 68 years of age, I have never enjoyed this so much. It's so exciting to me. And it's really, what I'm sharing with you is really about a science of life. When meditators meditate, there's a part of the brain that differentiates you from me, that gives me the impression that Patricia is separate from Jacob.
Right.
That part of the brain is not there when you're born. That's why babies are merely in a state of oneness. Freud described it as an ocean of bliss. There is no separation between the child and their mother.
Right.
Or anything else. So that part of the brain is actually not there in early infancy. But as we experience things in the world, we get the impression, based on our experience, that things are separate from us, or that people respond to situations as though they are separate from those situations. So that area of orienting what is self from other than self is something that you can clearly see in the brains of people in their everyday processing. However, when you take a experienced meditator, or someone who prays, or any number of different disciplines, where people they engage in something, let's call it meditation for the second, with an intent of coming to a state of oneness. When they are in that state of oneness, that demarcation in the brain that separates self from other than self blurs. It disappears. it's no longer visible on the scans, on the SPECT scans that you take of the brain. You look at it, and one moment it's there, one moment it isn't. So, of course, you say from that, well, I have to do something to get to that place. I have to meditate, or I have to do yoga, or I have to be a vegetarian, or I have to create my own reality, or whatever it is. What I want to share with those that are listening today is that even though I've never done those brain scans, and I can't tell you 100% factually, my sense of knowing, my gut knowing, is that if one is living life choicelessly, allowing life to guide them, which means we are unconditionally accepting of life, my sense is that the exact same thing occurs in the brain, and we experience the entire world as us. We don't experience, we could never engage in something that was good for me but not good for you.
Right.
It's all about inclusivity, and these words can't describe what I'm talking about.
Right.
But any more than the menu can describe the food. But what I'm sharing is what has occurred in my life is that there's been a gradual expanding of my unconditionality towards life, my acceptance of life as it is, my acceptance of myself exactly as I am, not as someone that needs to change and be different and let go and none of that. This is it. This is it. This is exactly the way this apple tree was made.
Mm-hmm.
And when I've come to accept that just like trees, each of us has a certain purpose. An apple tree can meditate and pray and sit at the foot of gurus all its life. It's never going to create bananas because it's designed to create apples.
Right.
We are living with this conception that humans are fruit salad trees. They're not.
Ah.
They don't exist. Each of us has a specific purpose in this particular life's experience. And when we recognize that our inner purpose is what we know by heart, it's what comes through us effortlessly, without any effort, without any work, without any thought, then we allow life to breathe us. And when we do that, what you call creativity is what emerges. What's exciting for me about our conversation is that I'm having this experience right now. I am not speaking from notes. I have no idea. I have no idea what is even being said right now. All I can share with you is I've never felt more excited in my life.
Well, it's absolutely wonderful.
Tingling right. You know,
and
I'm
it's
tingling
funny
right
because
now.
I know that you're in Hawaii, and I was and when you went away briefly, I thought, oh no, he can't go away because this is too wonderful, and I want to make sure that we got the whole thing. And so I'm very pleased that you came back.
I didn't go anywhere that I'm aware of, but you know, the whole gist of this is that everything you speak about, education, which is really about learning, creativity, which is this lovely state we want to experience.
Right.
That is our fingerprint. That is our entire purpose for being, is to create whatever kind of fruit or fragrance we are in this world. It doesn't require effort in the typical way that we think of as effort. We get so excited about something that it inspires us. And so the work is not work. The work is fun. Mm-hmm. It's like I couldn't imagine doing anything else. And for me, I feel moved right now to have this conversation with people all over the world, spontaneously, not necessarily as an event or a promotion or to make money. No. This conversation is so important because it lights us up.
Right.
And there is no way to express what it is when we get lit up. When all of a sudden we experience this magnificence that I have no words for, but are speaking me right now, and they're speaking you, and they're listening. That magnificence is the listening that individuals that are hearing this are experiencing. It's just that one moment I become the mouth of God and you become the ear of God and they become the ear of God, and then it changes, and that's what this divine conversation is about, is each of us being moved to share something or being moved to just sit in silence and allow that sharing to touch us, and then to notice what emerges from that, and that just expresses itself without any thought, without any effort, without anything. That's the heart of learning. That is the heart of creativity. That is what makes us tick. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just incredibly excited about that.
This has been just so wonderful. Briefly before, because we only have a few more minutes, first, would you tell the people listening your website, please? Yes.
People can visit us at jacobliberman.org. That's O-R-G. And Liberman is spelled L-I-B as in boy, E-R-M-A-N. So it's not L-I-E-B or L-E-I-B.
Right.
It's just L-I-B.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then from there they can, reach out to us if they have questions or go to our Facebook page or whatever.
Okay. And then could you briefly tell us a little bit about your next project that you're working on?
Well, the new book that we just sent proposals out about is tentatively titled Your Life is Looking for You. And it's essentially what I've been sharing the whole time we've been together,
right,
which is that we've been responding to life as though our physiology is designed to initiate action. Make it happen. Just do it, we say.
Mm-hmm.
But our physiology is not designed that way at all. Nothing in our physiology is designed to initiate action. Our physiology is designed to respond. To respond. What is it responding to? We say, our experiences. But what creates those experiences is the same intelligence that creates the right type of plant for an insect that lives in that area, so that the insect can be nourished by the plant.
Oh, I know.
What creates that which we are speaking about is also what makes sure that cactus seemingly is created or grows in the desert or in drier, arid zones than in a rainforest. There is something that knows where everything is supposed to be at any given moment and what it is that it is its purpose. And that's essentially the same for us. It's the discovery of a lifetime, and so the book will share my direct experiences, science that I think is really valuable in not in confirming what I'm trying to get someone to see, but science I find so fascinating that it causes us, it stops us in our tracks, and something inside says, I've always known that. This book is not teaching something new. It's merely reminding us of that which we already know, that which we already know by heart, and in the process, hopefully dissolving some conceptions about life that are part of our learning, but probably the reason we're reading that book whenever it is launched is because there's something inside that says, I'm looking a little deeper. The desire for oneness is number one on our bucket list. You know, it's no more about I want more money or I want more possessions. It is I want health and happiness to the best degree that I can have it, even though disease is also part of our wellness, you know. So the book is just reminding us of what we know and sharing a perspective or a direct experience, which is my life, of something that is very different from trying to make your life the way you want it, and realizing that just as a heart cell is designed to pump and a fat cell is designed to process fat and a brain cell is designed for activity in the brain, and immune cells are designed to protect us, and killer cells are special immune cells like Marines that go after foreign invaders. That just each of those cells has a job.
Right.
Each human being is like a certain kind of cell.
Right.
You know, sometimes we say, oh, they're a giver or they're a taker, and we make one positive and one negative. They're not. Just different types of natures. Different types of natures. I have been a mother hen since I guess I first gave birth, along with my wife at the time, to my lovely son and daughter. It's not something I choose. It is who I am. It is who I am. That is my job in this world, and that is also my love in this world. To help, to be of assistance, to say yes whenever I can. And so when people approach me for assistance or to share, or when you contacted us, it's always a yes to my inner knowing. And if my inner knowing is yes, then it's a yes to my yes. And
well,
if something inside a different direction, then it's a yes to my no.
We are so glad that you did say yes. And believe it or not, our time is almost up. And I just want to tell you, this has been so wonderful. I am just so grateful for not only this conversation, which we have decided will be called Conversations That Matter. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
That's good. But then also for all of our audience. You've just been so wonderful.
Thank you for joining me here at the Creativity, Thinking, and Education podcast with the remarkable Jacob Liberman. Please visit us at happyteachershappystudents.com. And if you find value in this podcast and the message we are trying to spread, then click the subscribe button and give my show a review, hopefully a good one. I am so excited to be able to share the timeless awareness of so many teachers over the coming weeks. Thank you, and we'll talk to you next Tuesday.